Hey friends, welcome to the channel. Over the past 4 years I've been a lender. I've acquired over 6 units and helped over 100 first-time home buyers in the process. And during that time, I learned a lot about what it actually takes to make that dream a reality, because oftentimes this isn't something that they teach you in school. So I wanted to share some of the basics in case you are somebody who wants to get familiarized with the process if you're trying to buy a home this year, next year, or just trying to get more information on how it all kind of works. So the first point I want to talk about is that the banks only go based off what they can verify. And if you can't document it to the banks, it doesn't exist. For example, if I say your name's John, they want to see your ID. If I say you make $10 an hour, they want to see a pay stub. And if I say you have $100 in your bank account, they want to see that bank account. And this is why sometimes people who get paid cash have such a hard time getting a loan, because they don't deposit it in their bank account. They don't declare it on their taxes. There's no real paper trail to support it. And this leads me to my second point, is that the bank really only care about your ability to repay back the mortgage. That's really all they care about. They don't care about your race, your ethnicity, your age, your gender, your occupation. They just want to know, can you pay me back the mortgage on a monthly basis? And so typically what we say is the magic rule is double. Whatever payment that you feel comfortable making on a monthly basis, whether it be $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 a month, the bank wants to see that between you and or everybody else applying on the loan, you guys make at least double. Because the banks, they think that you have half your money to live, pay your expenses like your car, your groceries, just your day-to-day expenses, and the other half to pay the mortgage. And keep in mind, they're using your gross income. So not what you take home, what you make before your tax. And I think really the key takeaway from this is that the banks, they don't care about your debt. A lot of times people think, I need to get rid of my credit cards, I need to get rid of my car loans. The banks really don't care about the total amount of debt that you have under your name. They care about, are you able to simply repay it? And this brings me to point number 3, which is a very common misconception that you need 20% down payment, which in fact is just generally not the case. On an FHA loan, which is typically what people assume as a first-time home buyer loan, this requires a minimum of 3.5%. And if you're going conventional financing, which is more private money like Chase, Wells Fargo, US Bank, they often require a minimum of 3% down for first-time home buyers. Now, 20% is a lot of money. If you have the ability to put down 20%, there are loads of benefits that come with putting down 20%. But the reality is, for most people, they don't have 20% down payment, because that's a lot. If you think about it, let's say even a $500,000 home, 20% is still $100,000. You don't need to put down 20%. You can put down significantly less. And really, 9 times out of 10, that's what I recommend, because let's say you want to put down another $20,000 towards the mortgage payment. Because the loan is for 30 years, $20,000 is a very marginal amount that you're going to be changing the mortgage payment. So if you have money to put as a down payment, that's amazing, but you absolutely do not need the money to put down and buy a house. Number 4 is that you do not need perfect credit to buy a house. The government is very lenient. They will let you have a credit score as little as 500 to apply for a house. However, when your score is at a 500, typically they want a little bit more down. So although it's 500, I always recommend that you shoot for at least 580, because 580 is when you start getting the better rates that you think about, and when you're able to put down the 3.5% that you also think about when you think of these loans. Now, although 500 is technically the minimum, most lenders have something called overlays, meaning that the government says 500 is a minimum, but that lender, just due to their risk tolerance, due to whatever reason they want to put, that lender basically says that, hey, I know the minimum is 500, but if you want our money, we want you to at least have a 580 or a 600 and a 620. And these overlays is sometimes why people have such hard time getting loans at banks, because banks have sometimes the strictest overlays out of all lenders. It's just some banks are more conservative or lenient with how they go about lending money to people. The guidelines that are instituted by the government are just kind of the baseline that lenders have to follow, and some lenders decide to put more on top of it than what they are required to for their own reasons. So jumping into number 5, down payment assistance, which I think is an amazing thing to kind of look into, especially if you're buying a home. Everybody loves free money, right? If you can find a program that's going to give you money and help you buy a house for the first time, why not take advantage of it, right? But like anything, there's always pros, there's always cons, and there's always a but, right? And the but in this case is that, these programs are great because they allow you to buy a home with very little out of pocket, but the main thing with them is that they're going to tell you where you can buy, sometimes for how much you can buy. You may not qualify for the program. And so it's not only a matter of seeing what programs are available, but what programs are a right fit for you, because there's tons of programs out there, but not everybody wants to live here, not everybody wants to live there, and not everybody wants to be told what and where they can buy. Programs are great, but you just have to make sure that they fit for you. Kind of like when you go to college, there's programs for STEM fields, for art fields, for different demographics. It's the same thing with the programs. There's different programs for different parts of California, for moderate income people, for low income people. There's a whole array, but you just have to make sure that one, you qualify, and two, you're okay with the parameters that they're gonna give you. And lastly, I think one of the biggest things I can say to somebody who's maybe even floating the idea in their head of buying a house is just get the process started, right? Get pre-qualified, talk to a realtor, and just see where you stand. It's kind of like when you're in high school and you're taking the SAT, and I know as I get older, the SAT is now becoming optional, but you take practice tests, right? You take an assessment to see where you're at, to see how you currently stand, and maybe things you need to improve on before you actually take the real test. Buying a house and going through the process is exactly the same way. You get pre-qualified, you talk to a lender, you see exactly where you stand today, because if you're not where you need to be, you can have some guidance in terms of what you need to be doing in the next coming months or years, whatever your timeline looks like, so that way you are ready. And if you can, even better would be to make friends with a realtor that you trust and a lender that you trust, because you want somebody who's genuinely gonna have your best interest at heart and is gonna coach you the same way how when you're playing sports in high school or college or at any level, the coach is there just to support you all times, tell you what to do better, and make sure that you're there to succeed. And I'm fortunate enough to have had my dad, who's been a lender for over 25 years, guide me growing up. So that way, by the time I got ready to buy my first house, I had somebody that I had complete trust with. And even if I didn't feel confident in the decision I was making, I knew that I trusted my dad enough to guide me in the right path when I couldn't see it myself. And if you want my team's help, absolutely for free, I'm gonna put a link in the description of this video where you can reach out to us anytime. And I do my absolute best to be a resource in the same way that my dad was for me growing up, and really help people walk through this entire process for the first time, or maybe for the 7th time, whatever your situation may be. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.